Let me again welcome you all here again today. You know, it's just incredible for me to be in a room of giants, and I know you're here to hear the information, but I have to acknowledge that so many of you, you're really the heroes and heroines. You're the reason that we even exist. And we was not more than an idea in a restaurant. Patrick Kennedy, David Frum, and myself, 2011, 2012, that has really grown into a national movement. And we're here because of you. We're so honored with some of the people that are here today with one of my mentors and a person that I just look up to for everything, Dr. Robert. The audience here to listen and absorb just speaks really to his incredible humility. And in this town, there's a lot of humble people in this town. And just an incredible wealth of experience. And so many other people like Jack Costa from NIDA, Teresa Haley, the former president of the ACP, Dr. Brett Bond, former head of the New York Society of Society of Nation Medicine, and so many others that are here. So we're just really honored for to be here with you. You're going to learn a lot. It's going to be sort of drinking from a fire hose here. But what I wanted to do, let's see if you want to put up the slides. What I'd like to do is just kind of tell you a little bit about kind of where we've been, what's been going on this last year. First of all, we are extremely happy to be partnering once again with CATCA. This is the 35th forum, and Sue thought, I don't know if Sue is here yet. There she is. Of course, I interviewed her when I was 20, which was only like 2 years ago, but the incredible thing is the wealth of experience that she and CATCA bring. We wouldn't be standing and talking about this idea of taking on the strong interest if it wasn't for partners like CATCA, if it wasn't for partners like One Chance to Grow Up and Diane and Henny, who are here, our partners in Colorado, and so many folks that are doing incredible work. Carlton, we have international folks that are here, Monte, Blair, you're going to hear from tomorrow. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for these partners, and especially CATCA, who, this is the 35th forum. I was at the third forum, that is aging me now. And at the third forum, it was kind of a lot smaller group, maybe something like this, that has now grown into such a powerhouse. So let's give CATCA a round of applause for the incredible work that they're doing. And yes, we actually got there, and a lot of times you know this year too, so that was pretty neat. Let's see, I'm going the wrong way. So what has been happening? Well, a couple of things have been happening I wanted to talk to you about. First is, many of you heard from Luke about our sister organization, Foundation for Drug Policy Solutions. So I'm really happy to say that we will be releasing in the next probably month or two our final blueprint for effective drug policy, which we're calling the Hyannis Consensus, because a lot of this was actually conceived and discussed at the Kennedy compound with a bunch of experts around the world, some of whom are in this room. Where essentially this is our message on good drug policy and on the need for a balance between, of course, supply and demand reduction, but of understanding that if you don't start using drugs before age 21, you're unlikely ever to do so. All drugs. So it's not really about one drug, it's about all drugs. And it's about alcohol, it's about nicotine, it's vaping, everything that's going on. And these are basic principles that you all know, most of you know, but our electeds don't. And they see, is this a waste of money? How is this going to fit into what we're doing in government? But really, we're very excited to be releasing this blueprint, which is very, very soon. We'll have the website up soon as well, which talks about this balanced approach. And yes, how you can believe, of course, that addiction is a disease, but as the late Herb Cleaver, one of my other mentors, once said, it's not a disease of the elbow, it's a disease of the brain. And that's different than a traditional disease. It does respond to the environment in ways that some diseases do, but many don't. It responds to incentives. It responds to consequences. It doesn't have to be severe consequences, but it does respond to some consequences in many cases. And I think sometimes we've forgotten that. We've gone on this pendulum from one side of an enforcement-only criminal justice approach, but then sometimes we've gone the pendulum swung totally the other way to only looking at this like any other disease like diabetes or high blood pressure, when we know it actually has very different elements. It's a biobehavioral disorder. There is a huge behavior element when your brain is hijacked. And when that happens, that means your brain can respond to something. And these are the kinds of things that we need to be talking about. We've been very excited over this last year, just to catch you up on what we've been doing with what's been happening in Florida. Obviously, let's give a round of applause to Amy Ronshausen, let's say how exciting that, doing incredible work in Florida and helping to defeat this initiative. When I don't even tell you what we were outspent by, because if I do, you will think I'm making that number up. It's that extreme, but we were able to, all of us together, work on this. And we work on this so we run into people, and we talk about this. And some people don't want to talk to us, so we make them listen anyway. One person that didn't want to talk to us we ran into was Donna Shalala, the former Health and Human Services Secretary, member of Congress, stalwart Democratic leader, liberal leader, progressive leader in Florida, who said to me at a meeting, we don't want more marijuana. We don't need marijuana legalization. What can I do? And it was because of our team at SAM that, and I'm going to give this away, but I think she won't mind, that essentially wrote an op-ed within 2 hours and submitted it under her name to the Miami Herald. It's because of, frankly, your support that we can be that nimble and do things like that. It's reasons why Luke can take on, I don't know what you would call John Morgan, I want to be G-rated, but let's say a very prolific trial attorney, Morgan, and take him on at the Florida young Republicans and basically wipe the floor with them on the debate and also helped us defeat this. Yes, it's how we're launching international affiliates like the one in Canada, and I was proudly standing with the mayor of Vancouver, Ken Sim, where we talk about sometimes involuntary commitment when it comes to extreme mental health that's leading to mental illness, that's leading to violence and extreme addiction. We need to talk about these very difficult issues and not shy away from them. And we're able to do that again with your support and with your help. And those of you in the Parent Action Network, raise your hand if you have any kind of connection to the Parent Action Network. We had a bunch of folks, some folks had to leave, but they deserve a round of applause. More than 2 dozen, almost 3 dozen of them, walking the halls of Capitol Hill tirelessly, leading their own families, leaving their jobs, not getting paid, being put up in a not great hotel, I think, but to walk the halls of Congress and speak the stories, because the stories matter as much, if not more, to lawmakers than the data. And some of you, know that I sometimes, quote all different kinds of people, and it was, Joseph Stalin of all people, but he was correct when he said that the death of 10,000 soldiers is a mere statistic. The death of one is an absolute tragedy. And we have to lift those statistics. These are not numbers. These are people. These are not just people, these are their families. These are their communities. And we have to constantly remind our lawmakers that it's not just about the percentage of people that have increased or decreased in using or overdose, but that these are real lives. And I'm so proud of Chrissy and Bronwyn and the team that are outside now that have done incredible work organizing parents. And we could not have done that without support from people like Julie Shower and others that have been incredible in supporting us for this. We've been able to take our message across around the world. Some of you know Sir Robin Murray and his wife who put out the definitive psychosis paper. Some of you know the work that Iceland is doing, Planet Youth, as essentially a model for drug prevention around the world. And if you don't know what Planet Youth is doing, please look them up. They're doing incredible work. I was so lucky to be there. Our work with the UN, pushing this to the international level, which I think will be bigger than ever. And now our work around the world, including in the developing world, where we just got back from Tanzania, because there are US-based foundations that are putting hundreds of millions of dollars, you can believe it, in countries that barely have functional, to their own admission, barely have functional education and healthcare systems, let alone drug treatment set up, that wants to legalize drugs and open up the drug trade because they either foolishly believe that the international drug trade will just go away if you legalize drugs. And those of you in Colorado and California, you can tell us how that is going. They just believe no matter what, we should open up drug use so that it doesn't matter. So this message is now being taken around the world. And where we are now, obviously, there's been progress made with the overdose epidemic, but we are still in a very dangerous place. And while we should absolutely celebrate the success, there's been about a 20% decrease we've learned in year to year, we have to think about why there's been that decrease. There's no really good answers. I have not heard one good answer other than I think it is increased awareness about the dangers of this drug. You have to be a Martian and not to know now about what's going on and how deadly these drugs are. I think the other reason, sadly, is a lot of the people that were going to pass away that didn't care about that risk, they have already passed away in unprecedented numbers. I hate to sort of put it in that crude way, but we have to think about what we can do to obviously further this number down. And if we only look at the end of the spectrum, we absolutely need to reverse overdoses, don't get me wrong. But for every fatal overdose, there's 5 non-fatal ones. And for every one of these 5 non-fatal ones, by the way, 15% of them will be fatal within a year. So this idea that we're going to somehow turn this thing around by getting a bigger and bigger Band-Aid and just making sure there are Band-Aids everywhere, we need Band-Aids. When you're bleeding, you need them. You need bigger the better when you have a wound like this. But you need more than Band-Aids. You need prevention, you need awareness, you need supply reduction in law enforcement, you need a balanced approach. And this is the kind of thing we need to keep pushing for. As Patrick has said and Luke said, we need people where they're at, but we don't leave them there. That is the difference between what we're trying to do and the folks that see the end game as only harm reduction. That's where we stop. We stop with Narcan and we go home. Just make sure they have Narcan for next time. That is not a strategy out of this. That is not a way out of this. We need wider supports. And of course, when we look at the marijuana issue, we see the connection as well. You see the number of marijuana emergency admissions going up. You see the fact that we now have more marijuana emergency admissions than opioid emergency admissions. And this is called an opioid epidemic. So it's not only about one drug, obviously. It's about multiple drugs that are happening. We now have, over the last 10 years, 4.5 times more people daily using high-potency marijuana. This is a rapid change that I have never seen in any other drug use statistic that we've seen. You had slight epidemics like with ecstasy and MDMA in the late 90s or whatever. They lasted 2 or 3 years. They lasted 4 years. Our heroin epidemics have lasted 5 to 10 years. This is going at a rate that we have absolutely never seen before. So the number of daily now are 3 times what they were daily. And when you look at the number of daily marijuana users with the number of daily alcohol users, it now surpasses that number by 50%, almost 50%. Those are numbers that if you presented at an academic conference 5 years ago, you could laugh at them. So we need to start talking about this. We are all in your arm as a country in a very different way than we've been doing. And that's what we're trying to push now. Look at a place like Colorado that had 12.5% of daily adult users, and now of the adult consumers that are there, half of them are daily users. That is a change we've never seen before in such a short amount of time. And obviously we know that's happening because of the mass commercialization. So there's more use disorder now than there has been. The number of Americans with cannabis use disorder. When you look at places that have implemented legalization, they've had a significant increase in overdose deaths than in non-legalized states. Well, I wonder why. And so a lot of people separate this issue and they think, well, there's drugs and there's marijuana, there's weed. Obviously, we cannot separate these issues. But I do believe it or not, I think we are beginning to turn the ship around. And this is my one note of what's happening this weekend. We're going on. And I'm not telling you why I'm reporting here. I really wanted you to add an asterisk under one of them about referees. I didn't do that. Sorry. But we are going on offense in ways that we've never seen before, and it's actually paying off. And we're doing it because of all of you. First of all, 7 out of the 10 last states that have had legalization on the ballot. This inevitable thing that folks told me would happen by 2018, then they said it would happen by 2020, then they said it would happen in Hillary Clinton's second presidential term. These are real things that real people that get paid a lot of money said. And we've now defeated, with all of your help, all of us, 7 out of the 10 ballot initiatives. Can I get a round of applause for that? And you can some of them, and this is, by the way, being completely out of specs. But I do think people are starting to wake up to this message. I really do. In Oklahoma, they had approved a medical ballot initiative. And people said, well, of course they're going to approve a legalization one. No, actually, they got a taste of what that was like. And if you pick up Oklahoma in the last 5 years, it makes San Francisco look like Dubai when it comes to marijuana shops. And it's unbelievable. And so people got a taste of it, and almost 7 out of 10 people said they don't want it there. In Florida, like I said, in North Dakota and South Dakota, and even in Massachusetts, the home of Timothy Leary and his research. And where's our friend Dr. Bertha Madras? I don't know if she's here. She'll be here a little bit later. She'll be speaking to us about psychedelics, and she's at Harvard, but it was Harvard that brought us Timothy Leary and Rick Doblin, the godfathers of psychedelics. And we have even defeated that after being outspent 8-1 in the state of Massachusetts, which is an incredible thing. I do think people are beginning to look at this. When Gallup asked people in July of 2022 whether marijuana has a positive or negative effect in society, it was about 50-50. Now it's 41-54 against. When they said, how is it with the individual in July of 2022? It was 53-45 in favor. It flipped. We're 43-51. 51 against. So these are real changes that we're tracking and that other people are tracking. And I think it's because people are waking up. You know, we were sliding down a very dangerous path in this country when the pandemic began, especially with regards to not just marijuana, but all drugs. And in Oregon, you know, Measure 110 passed with a very significant margin, which essentially they said was going to do treatment over incarceration, is what they said. And so people said, yeah, that makes sense. And of course, if we want, I mean, who doesn't want somebody with a drug disorder to get treatment versus incarceration? All of us want that, by the way. All of us think that that should be the first line of defense. I don't know anybody that says if your only crime is using drugs, you need to go to prison for a long time. I don't know anybody that says that anymore. But that's the way this is mocked, and that's why how it's presented. And it was presented to Oregon voters in 2020. Overwhelmingly, they said, we don't want that. After 2 years, basically, of this so-called experiment, and they found out that less than 1% of people were utilizing treatment, so they weren't going to treatment, they weren't showing up, there was no incentive for them to go, they never called a hotline, which they were supposed to call a hotline. They had 50 phones, I visited it, not one of them was ringing. They were supposed to call a hotline if you had a problem. Nobody was doing that. Nobody was paying the fines, anyway, $100, who's going to go after that. And instead, Oregon became the worst state in the Pacific Northwest and further for overdoses. And especially for young people, 3 out of 5. It was a magnet for addiction. Much more than Washington and in Seattle, that's saying a lot. And so what happened was there was this whole movement against it as a result. This backlash started that you even had the Oregon legislature, which doesn't look like, I mean, this Oklahoma's legislature looks very different. And this very blue legislature with a very blue governor said, there's going to change mine. We've got to do something, we've got to change it. And so with some of your help in this room even, we took this on as a project because very few other people were doing it. Because you had the Drug Policy Alliance and legalization movement pouring tens of millions of dollars into these states to trick people. Because their goal is not to get people treatment, folks. Treatment is like, if it happens, great, but it's sort of incidental. The goal is to, of course, legalize all drugs, and they have different words for it. They have decriminalization, which is a very nice way of talking about legalization, because it sounds nice. Nobody wants people addicted to criminalize. Of course we don't, as I said. Or they call it safe supply, where in British Columbia, and you'll learn more about it, they are supplying hydromorphone, the opioids, to people using drugs, thinking that at least they'll use this and not fentanyl. Well, guess what's happening? Fentanyl is going way up. In the recent downturn, but not because of this, they've had these programs for a long time. It's skyrocketed overdoses, and what's going on is that people that are using drugs are selling their free pills from the government to younger people who are actually pretty naive when it comes to opioids. They want to try something, and are using that money to buy fentanyl because they're seeking out fentanyl, folks. This is not only a drug poisoning epidemic. There are plenty of young people who absolutely were poisoned. They thought they were taking, Adderall or something, and it was laced with fentanyl. We get that, absolutely, those are tragedies. But the vast majority of these overdoses are from people seeking out fentanyl. They need a bigger and bigger and bigger high. As Bob said, Dr. DuPont, 30 years ago, the selfish brain. The brain is the most selfish, I don't take all his quotes. But the brain is the most selfish organ in the body. So it's going to go for the highest high. I mean, anybody can say that. I'm looking at people here who I know are in recovery for decades who tell me this. And so that obviously is not working. And then, of course, full legalization. If you don't believe me, this is not AI-generated. I wish that heroin packet was an AI-generated image. This would be actually before that could even happen. But this stuff is really happening. But there's a turn, even in British Columbia. Drugs were the number one issue of the last election that almost toppled the government that's been in power for a very long time. didn't topple them by 2 seats because of running on the drug issue. You never would have thought that in British Columbia, but it's happened. And now this issue with psychedelics, which of course is just the next chapter in the goals of legalizing legitimized drugs. I'm with the American Psychiatric Association, which says that there is no evidence currently to say that these drugs treat any psychiatric disorder. That doesn't mean that there might not be promise if we do the studies the right way, and Dr. Gross will talk more about what that looks like. There might be promise. We want there to be promise. I'm the first person who wants more treatments for people with PTSD and depression. Who doesn't? It can be heartless not to want that. But what we don't want is snake oil, modern day snake oil. What we don't want is things that are going to get people more sick. And we certainly don't want that when it's really about addiction for profit, which is what it is. That's what this whole thing is about. And you can get your t-shirt even out there that says that, which is true. It's legal weed equals corporate greed. That's what it is. It's addiction for profit, and psychedelics are the next thing. So they're not stopping. They're going to, they're not, we don't have, we could keep celebrating these unprecedented victories, but we can't. These are some of our target states here in the next couple of months. If you're from these states, please join us. Psychedelics as well. They're not stopping. They're going very hard. And they're going because there's a lot of money to be made. Just look at the Twitter chatter from the marijuana industry. There's just class of people that have now started marijuana and psychedelics. They've never used these drugs in their life. They've never been to a normal national organization for reform marijuana laws. They've never been to one of those conferences in their life. They couldn't tell you who the Drug Policy Alliance even is. I mean, at the very least, I can have disagreement with somebody, but if you truly believe in something because you believe in it and you come from there, I can respect that even if I vehemently disagree. But these people, now, this class of thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, these are basically faceless, kind of nameless trolls that are out there that are just following the stock signals on marijuana and psychedelics. This is all about money. And we are the people that are standing in the way of them making tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions, billions if you total it all up. But it's a righteous cause. We have to stay the course. And we are threatened, all of you are, I know that. There's intimidation, we can share emails and texts and the things that have happened to many of us. But we're going to keep going, because this is, as many people have said, this is really a defense of our kids, this is a defense of the brain. And so what are our updates and legislative priorities? First of all, we're on offense on the state level as well. We're working in Montana. We're working in multiple states, but we're working with our colleagues to, we realize that if we legalize it, we get it. But we also think that this is not necessarily forever. So we will actually be announcing, this isn't even on the slide, this year, a partial repeal effort in multiple legalization states. If I can get a round of applause for that. But there's that, we have to take advantage of that. And by the states where that's not going to happen, we are going to repeal the most egregious parts of those laws. We are going to force people to put warning labels on, saying that this causes psychosis, that this causes suicide, that this can cause cancer, that this causes IQ loss, that this causes heart attacks, blood pressure, all the things that we're seeing in all the data that are literally coming up every day. We cannot keep up with the data. We cannot keep up with the headlines that we're getting now that we would have killed for, we would have paid for if we had all the money in the world 5 years ago. We're getting them now. Everything that we're saying is coming true, unfortunately. I wish we were wrong, but we are now going to be going to these legislatures and working on this. So we have a lot of legislative priorities that deal with banning Delta 8 on the federal level, as we just talked about, stopping the Safe Banking Act, because this is not about any kind of Safe Banking Act, folks. It's the unsafe Banking Act, not the safe one. It would open up institutional investment. These big banks are salivating. That's why when, my friend Senator Elizabeth Warren is saying we need to have banking. This is somebody that hates big banks. How can you say you want marijuana banking? It doesn't make any sense. And this would open up investors. And they'll say, no, it's about taking credit cards, so we're not a magnet for crime. Folks, they're already magnets for crime because they have a very lucrative product. Jewelry stores are magnets for crime and they take credit cards. It's not about cash or credit. And by the way, 75% of these marijuana stores take plastic anyway. So it's a huge myth that they're pushing, and they've tricked many people on both sides of the aisle and all kinds of politicians that I won't call out now because we'd be here all day. But we're going on offense, so it's not just defense. We are proposing several proactive appropriations. First of all, we are doing that in getting more data on high-potency THC. We don't know what 99% THC does in 10 years, after 10 years of use. We still don't know. We know it's not good, but we don't know the specifics. And we need to learn a lot more. We absolutely want to prevent marijuana rescheduling, and we're looking at how do we do that through statute. We're also going to be continuing to fight on that, which you may or may not have heard of. We're supporting non-marijuana bills like the FACTS Act, which is about education about opioids, and we absolutely need a national social media and traditional media campaign again in this country. We need to raise awareness about drugs. It doesn't have to be a crime edit if we don't want it. It doesn't have to be Mr. T on different strokes. I happen to like that episode, they didn't just say no. But it doesn't have to be that. It can look different. It can be updated. But you know what needs to be educated the most? It's actually not the 14-year-old kid. By the way, a lot of those kids there are rejecting marijuana and other drugs in ways they never rejected before. We need to educate parents and adults who think it's totally fine to use these products around their kids. The vast majority of new users, folks, is because their parents and their family are using these drugs. Something that's hard to put your head around if you're a new parent like me, but it's out there in big ways. And so we need to rethink that absolutely. And we've had a very active year as well. We've been drafting language about keeping marijuana businesses away from schools, talking about obviously rescheduling, and again, going on offense. In all kinds of ways. We have brand new resolution, the first joint resolution to outline the dangers of high-potency pot. We have Congressman Chuck Edwards of North Carolina with the Stop Pot Act. We already talked about the Miller Amendment, and they're doing this. Even this week, remember looking at the idea of stopping, changing rescheduling in that way. And so, by the way, with rescheduling, we have no idea what's happening. No one has a crystal ball. It's pause. That's a good thing. I like that it's paused. I like that it's stopped for now. We don't know where it's going to go. There's been so many lies and misinformation out there about marijuana rescheduling. The reality is, folks, the political side of some folks essentially turn this into a political football. Recalibrated the definitions of our drugs in order to try and squeeze marijuana into Schedule III, and did so in a way that I've never seen more egregious before. So I'm confident that this will stop, but obviously we have to see what happens. You can download our federal policy report, which is an incredible report about what's going on legislatively, and we'll make sure you have these slides afterwards, so if you don't catch it today. You can also get all of our toolkits, resources, one-pagers, obviously, on our website. Go to our website and please subscribe to our new podcast, The Drug Report, as well as our newsletter, which is 1 to 2 times a week, which is a curated roundup of just headlines. Very easy to read, called The Drug Report as well. So we'd love for you to do that. There's sort of one final thing I want to announce. Many of you know, and have been part of this film project that we embarked on, I don't even know, 3 years ago or something. And I will say, between the PhD and multiple books and everything else, the hardest thing I've ever done is to be part of a Hollywood production like this. It's kind of insanity. But I think we're getting to a better place. We're very proud of Wayfarer Studios. Some of you might know the film That Ends With Us, or the film Clouds, or the film Garfield. That this is the studio that has produced our film and funded the whole thing, mainly because the founder who actually wanted to be here, Steve Sarowitz, had a personal tragedy, thankfully overcame, but with his son and high-potency THC. And basically approached me a few years ago and said, how can we raise awareness about this? So what can we do? I have a film company, and that helped. I have a little film company. The little film company is now a big film company. And so we are now looking at streaming services that are in the final edit. We're so proud of Bacchus Family. It's essentially a movie that part of the story thread is following their journey, their incredible tragedy. They're turning into an educational really moment for the country. So we do have 2 minutes, as they call it, sizzle in Hollywood, that they just sent me, that I barely have seen, sort of seen on fast forward on you real quick. But they have 2 minutes that I'd love to share with you if you don't mind with the film. And we don't know where it's going to be available, whether it's Angel, whether it's Netflix, whether it's, we don't know. But we do hope this fall, ideally, we are pushing release date, and we really hope it's something that can penetrate the mainstream and further the education that we're doing. So maybe we can go ahead and play that little. And then, so we're very excited about it. It's just another tool for education. People like Laura Stack who are here, we're so happy to be here with us doing the education around the world, around the country. And we're all in this together, and we have to be. So I'm so proud that you all are here. I know many of you have been here all week. You were asked to stay another 2 days. I hope it's informative. I hope it's inspiring. And we're just so honored to be on this journey with you all. Welcome to the summit. Thank you.